Greetings, everyone. Wow, what an epic month this has been for Doctor Who fans. I do apologize for not coming on and saying anything until now. Leave it to me to wait till the majority of the festivities are over to start talking about them. Yeah, I've just been so freaking exhausted from work. I've got my final day of training tomorrow, so it's been about a month and a half's worth of training, and I've just been so wiped out at the end of every day. I just haven't had the energy to do anything. I mean, I wanted to just flood my channel with Doctor Who stuff all throughout the month of November, but yeah. And even Halloween. Even Halloween was kind of a bust this year. What did I do? Like 5 videos? Woohoo! Big celebration. Yeah, I'm still going to do some more Halloween stuff just to, at least do subjects of things I wanted to talk about. But we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, let's talk about some Doctor Who. Man, where do I begin? There has been so much stuff this month, and it's just been one thing after another, like every few days. At the time of this recording, it is the morning of the 26th of November, so 3 days after the Day of the Doctor, the big 50th anniversary special. But there's even more stuff. I mean, there was a lot of stuff leading up to that. There was an Adventure in Space and Time, the biopic about the creation of the show, and William Hartnell, which was amazing. There was the Night of the Doctor and the Last Day mini episodes, which preceded Day of the Doctor. There's even a bunch of great documentaries. There was one called The Science of Doctor Who, which was basically a big speech presentation by Brian Cox, talking about time travel and things like that. Really good. Not Brian Cox the actor, Brian Cox the scientist. Although, funny enough, Brian Cox the actor was also involved in Adventure in Space and Time, so both Brian Coxes were involved in the celebrations in some capacity, which was pretty cool. And then there was also Doctor Who The Ultimate Guide, which was a big 2-hour feature-length retrospective of the entire history of the series. And both that and The Science of Doctor Who actually featured Matt Smith in character as the Doctor doing, little segments for the show, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, so I guess to start off with, we'll sort of go in order. There's not really much to say about the documentaries. They're basically much as you would expect. Check them out if you get a chance, because they're really well done and cover some really interesting stuff. I mean, the Ultimate Guide is... They've done a few Ultimate Guide specials over the years. This is the biggest one they've ever done. It's a full 2 hours in length and just covers the whole spectrum of stuff. So... definitely worth checking out if you want sort of a crash course in all things Doctor Who. And The Science of Doctor Who is just really fascinating. Brian Cox is just a really compelling, interesting guy to listen to, and has some really awesome ideas and theories and stuff. So definitely check that one out as well. But I guess to start things off, we'll talk a little bit about An Adventure in Space and Time, which is the feature-length movie. It kind of had the vibe of an HBO movie, basically based on the true events of the creation of the show and some of the hurdles that they had to overcome to get it on the air and to get it seen and shown, and a lot of it is about William Hartnell and his experiences working on the show as well. So let's talk about that today. We'll start the belated 50th anniversary celebrations with that. So, my review of An Adventure in Space and Time, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Now, An Adventure in Space and Time is based on the true events, the true story of just everything that went on to get Doctor Who on the air originally. You get the story of Sidney Newman, who is a Canadian producer who kind of fancied himself something of kind of like a Hollywood movie mogul type, but he was working for the BBC. Called himself an ideas man, and he would come up with concepts and stuff. So he came up with the original concept for the show, and then hired Verity Lambert, an up-and-coming young woman who was wanting to make a name for herself in television. Had a few projects in the past, but this was the first time she'd ever been offered the opportunity to produce a television show. So she was the showrunner. She was the one who called the shots. And this was a big deal because this is the early 60s, and this shows, that Sidney Newman was something of a visionary and was able to think outside of the box. I mean, not only did he come up with the original concept of Doctor Who, basically about this guy traveling through time and space in a time machine and stuff like that, wanted to have a lot of historical stories, so they'd go back in time to historical events so the kids would learn about history and things like that. He had a very strict mandate saying no bug-eyed monsters. He didn't want it to be a cheesy, schlocky sci-fi show. And there is some stuff about that, because, of course, the second story of the original first season was the Daleks, which is all bug-eyed monsters, essentially. It's exactly what he didn't want. But it deals with how they convinced him to let that show go on. And, boy, was it ever a good thing they did, because that was the story that really made the show take off. But the other thing was the fact that Verity Lambert, I mean, this is early 60s, BBC, very much all men in suits. She was the first female producer for dramatic television, and that was a pretty big deal. And then you also had, and then she hired Waris Hussein, which was a young East Indian director who had a few dramatic projects and such along the way, to direct the first story. And it was a big deal for him as well to be able to get, because, I mean, being in a minority in the early 60s, it was unusual for someone from his background to get such a fairly high-profile job as a director, and it was great. It was just a great pairing of these, two sort of minorities in the 60s fighting against the system just to get their show made. And it's a really, really interesting story. Now, as someone who is quite familiar with the original stories and the behind-the-scenes stories of this is a great DVD set, by the way, full of documentaries about the creation of the show. If you enjoyed An Adventure in Space and Time, definitely do yourself a favor and pick this up, and you can actually see a lot of the real story and the real people behind it in the documentaries here. It's just a great companion piece to that film. But An Adventure in Space and Time was sort of the dream project of Mark Gatiss, who is a lifelong Doctor Who fan. Some of you may know him from Sherlock, where he plays Mycroft Holmes. And he's also one of the main writers on there, along with Stephen Moffat. He's written for Doctor Who before. He's written a number of episodes, even starred in an episode. I believe it was one of the second season episodes, the Lazarus Experiment, or Lazarus Effect. I don't know. Something about Lazarus. Anyway, it's been a while since I've watched that season, obviously. I'm not as well versed on the new Who as I am on the old Who, I will confess. Most of the new Who I've only watched once or twice, whereas the old ones I've watched more times than I can count. But it's, in short, I thought it was a fantastic movie, and it really captured the story of the creation of the show, and basically all the way up to the end of William Hartnell's run. You have a fantastic performance by David Bradley, who you may know as Filch from the Harry Potter movies, and he was also Walder Frey from Game of Thrones. Yes, from the infamous Red Wedding and numerous other appearances. But so you have David Bradley as William Hartnell, and he looks and acts and sounds so much like him. It's kind of scary, actually. But he did just a fantastic job. I mean, it's a very powerfully dramatic story, and very touching and heartbreaking and heartwarming, and it's got all the marks of a great dramatic film. But what makes it even more amazing, I think, and even more affecting is it's all true. And as I say, as someone who's pretty intimately familiar with the actual events that went into the creation of the show, I can honestly say that it's a very accurate portrayal of how it all went down. it's pretty much dead on perfect. I was really blown away by just how good a job they did, and not just that, but also just distilling it down to a 90 minutes movie. I kind of liken it to there's an HBO film a while back called RKO 281, which was all about the making of Citizen Kane and all the trials and tribulations that Orson Welles and his compadres went through before, during, and after the making of the movie. And Adventure in Time and Space is very much like the RKO 281 of the Doctor Who world, because it shows that, it was very close to not happening on a number of occasions. There's even one point where they had done the first story, the four-parter, with the cavemen and everything, and they were about to be cancelled. And it was only through the tenacity of Verity Lambert, who already had the scripts in for the second story, the Daleks, that she convinced them to let them keep going for a little while to see how it does, because she felt that they had something really special, that it should be given a fair chance. So they let it go ahead for the Dalek story, and good thing they did, because then it just exploded. It absolutely exploded, and became just a nationwide sensation, later a worldwide sensation. So, and here we are 50 years later still talking about it. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. So definitely check out An Adventure in Time and Space. Not sure where you can see it at this point in time. You might be able to find it online somewhere. I know there is a DVD release being planned. There's no word yet on a Blu-ray release, unfortunately. I'm hoping that changes, because I would really like to have it on Blu-ray. It was all filmed in high def, so it would be nice to be able to get it in the full quality, especially since they did such a great job with the sets and the costume design, just really setting it in the early 60s. And they even recreated a lot of the original sets. I mean, they did a full recreation of the original TARDIS console room set, for example, and the junkyard from the very first episode. And they have a lot of the classic style Daleks and whatnot, and you see clips of them. You got the original Cybermen in there, and it's just fantastic. It really is. For someone who loves the 60s era as much as I do, it really is just a trip down nostalgia lane, And I was watching it actually with my friends who I've been watching the old episodes with, and they really love the William Hartnell era as well. So it was a very special experience for all of us to be able to watch this very touching film about that era and everything. And I don't know what more I can say about it. Just see it. It's fantastic. If you ever wondered about how the show came about and how it managed to survive so long, this will give you a pretty good insight on how it all began, and in the form of a pretty darned entertaining, dramatic film. Just major kudos all around. I think everybody, cast and crew, did a fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic. And definitely going to pick it up on DVD or Blu-ray, whichever it comes out on, the second it comes out, because that is something I definitely want in my Doctor Who library. So An Adventure in Time and Space. Check it out. And so next up, more Doctor Who stuff. We've got a lot to talk about with all the 50th anniversary things. I wanted to give my thoughts on all the various ones, shows and whatnot that we've seen. And so next time I think we'll probably talk about the 2 mini episodes that preceded the Day of the Doctor, specifically the Night of the Doctor and the Last Day. So that'll be next time. Yeah. Until then, Adventure in Space and Time. Check it out. You won't regret it. Alrighty. That is it from me to you for now. Happy 50th anniversary, Doctor Who. And we'll talk to you next time. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara.